All right, here we go again. Welcome to the Otherppl Show. It is a books and culture podcast. I'm Brad Listi, and I'm in Los Angeles. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to subscribe. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram. And today on the show, we're going to be doing some year-end review. We're going to wrap things up in the first of a 2-episode wrap-up. That's what I think we're going to do. And, it's been a big year for the show, 147 episodes as of this taping. That's a lot of episodes. I don't know if that's a record. I would have to go back through, and I'm not doing that. I'm not going to, go back through and count. It doesn't matter that much, but it's definitely been one of the busiest years in the history of the show. The 15th year of the podcast. And, we're making more episodes than ever before. So I think I counted how many books I read, which is kind of annoying. I don't like when people do that. I'm not going to tell you. Maybe I shouldn't do it either. But I feel like as a literary podcaster, it makes more sense. I don't like it when people are like, oh, I read 198 books this year. It's like, okay. All right, smarty. We get it. I only read 61, which still feels like a lot. Mostly on audiobooks at triple speed, which is what I'm reduced to as a literary podcaster who, does multiple interviews a week. It's the only way I can do it. It's not my preferred method. I would love to luxuriate on a chaise lounge. Is that what you call it? A chaise lounge? Chaise longue? If I had read 187 books this year, I might know how to pronounce it, and I might pronounce it with the appropriate French accent, which I should know, since I'm taking French on Duolingo every day. I have a 700-day streak going. The tyranny of the Duolingo streak. Fuck you, Duolingo. I fucking hate you. I don't like the infantilization. I don't like the cartoons. I don't like the gamification. I don't like the shaming or the little trinkets and jewels. I don't like the little fucking owl. Fuck you, man. What a terrible company. And most of all, the constant upselling. If you're a Duolingo person, you know what this means. They constantly are trying to get you to buy more shit, upgrade your service, bring new people in. They got to grow, right? Constant growth. The logic of a cancer cell. Fuck you, Duolingo. Merry Christmas, everybody. Hope you're okay out there. Hope you're having a glass of warm cocoa, hot cocoa, not warm cocoa. Who wants warm cocoa? Not me. I can tell you that much. Last night, I went to tell my daughter goodnight. I do this every night. I try to go have some time with her, tell her goodnight, ask her if she's got anything on her mind. I'm trying to be a good dad, trying to be that guy. So when she looks back, after I'm gone, she'll be like, he always checked in. He was always there. Isn't that what you're supposed to do? So I go in and I'm like, hey, how are you doing? And as I walk in the room, I see her, she's spritzing, from a little bottle, like a little spray, She's spritzing her bed. And I'm like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, this is my favorite hair perfume that I get, because she's like a teenager. So she's into all these beauty products. And of course, on my Instagram, I've been reading about endocrine disruption. I'm in the endocrine disruption algorithm for some god-awful reason. I didn't ask for it. Not that I know of, but it's coming at me all the time. Don't light scented candles. Don't use air fresheners. They'll disrupt your endocrine system. So I'm immediately like, well, what are you doing? What are you spraying your bed with? And she's like, oh, it's this perfume. I love this scent. And I'm like, what's in it? And of course, I'm looking at the bottle and I can't even pronounce anything. It's 50 different ingredients. Each ingredient has 17 letters in it. And it looks like a jumble of consonants. And I'm just like, this isn't, I'm not sure if this is good. Could disrupt, this could disrupt your endocrine system. And she's like, what is that? And I'm like, I don't know, but you don't want to disrupt it. I don't know what an endocrine system is, but you certainly don't want to disrupt it, right? And so my daughter, who's a little bit on the anxious side, especially around medical stuff, starts to go into a panic. Oh my God, she takes her pillows off the bed. And I'm just like, just take the pillowcases off. I'm just trying to be a good dad. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm not trying to cause like a catastrophic panic attack. I'm just trying to say, maybe don't spray your bed with chemicals before lying in it. Is that wrong? Lenny Kravitz wouldn't do that. Lenny Kravitz does laundry with Castile soap. He washes his hair with Castile soap. Did you know that? Have you seen him lately? He's like 60-something years old, and he looks like he's 24. That's who I'm following. He's my North Star. Lenny Kravitz would not spray his bed with perfume. So I don't know. And then we get into this whole thing and she's starting to like tear up and I'm like, okay, like I'm out. I didn't want to cause trouble. I'm trying to look out for you. She's like, it was my favorite scent. I'm just like, oh God. And I'm like, don't Google endocrine disruption. Just don't Google it. Just go to bed. It's going to be fine. Just don't spray chemicals on your bed. So, there's that. The holidays are fine. I get, like I've been saying on this show, my wife likes to give me a hard time for being too dark at the holidays. I'm not any darker than I normally am. And I'm trying to put on a good face. I understand the utility of that when it comes to being a parent. Kids get into Christmas. I'm not trying to ruin anybody's good time. But I will be pleased when it's over with. I will breathe a sigh of relief, just get me to January. Get me beyond New Year's, all of it. Just get me there. I think a lot of people feel that way. Some people really revel in it. Good for them. Enjoy it. Do you. You do you. I'm going to do me. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of like one day at a time. Every day's the same. That's what I like. All days are Christmas for me. That's the difference between you and me. I feel like it's Christmas every day. So yeah, year-end stuff, 147 new episodes this year, 61 books read. And it's been a weird year. I mean, they just keep getting weirder, it seems like. Not trying to be grim, just trying to be honest. I don't know how you perceived it. Maybe it was totally different. Maybe the sun shone upon you. Maybe the money rained down. Professional successes stacked up, one after the other. Your personal life was filled with glory. I mean, who knows, Everybody has a different take. But from my perspective, what a weird year. And especially like politically, geopolitically, culturally, the AI of it all. So yeah, I don't want to spiral into an assessment of where I think things are politically and culturally and all the rest. It's a family show. I'm not doing it. But it's been a weird year, I'll tell you that. And speaking of weird, I feel like we should all take a moment to memorize that Terence McKenna clip. Do you know what I'm talking about? Where he talks about how weird everything's going to get? Or how, like where we're headed. If you're sitting at the Christmas dinner table with your family and somehow serious subject matter comes up, people start talking politics, it's kind of going around the horn, everybody's taking a turn, everybody's weighing in. It would be, I think, useful to have this speech committed to memory and then just recite it at the table like con gusto and see how it goes. So if you haven't heard it, this is the speech I'm talking about. This is like a clip. It's going around on Instagram from Terence McKenna, the late great.
I think it's just going to get weirder and weirder and weirder. And finally, it's going to be so weird that people are going to have to talk about how weird it is. I look for the invention of artificial life, the cloning of human beings, possible contact with extraterrestrials, possible human immortality, and at the same time, appalling acts of brutality, genocide, race baiting, homophobia, famine, starvation. The mushroom said to me once, it said, "This is what it's like when a species prepares to depart for the stars. You don't depart for the stars under calm and orderly conditions. It's a fire in a madhouse. And that's what we have, the fire in the madhouse at the end of time. This is what it's like when a species prepares to move on to the next dimension.
So anyway, let's get to the countdown. Today I'm going to be doing the 5 of the 10 most listened to interviews of 2025, 10 through 6. And then on Thursday, I'll break down the top 5 most listened to interviews of the year. All right. So let's just do it. At number 10, we have Vincenzo Latronico. In episode 997, Vincenzo is the author of the novel Perfection, which is available from New York Review Books. It was translated from the Italian by Sophie Hughes. It was longlisted for the National Book Award for Translated Literature, and it was a Booker Prize finalist. Vincenzo Latronico was born in Rome and lives in Milan. And Perfection is a superb novel, and it's not very long. I want to say it's 140 pages or, something like that. And it sold tens of thousands of copies. It really caught a wave, this book did. It struck a chord and it caught a wave. It struck a wave. So I was happy to be able to talk with him on the show. It's always nice to talk with somebody from a different country, from a different cultural milieu. And interesting that this book, speaks across cultures, borders, all the rest of it. And we had a great conversation. So here's a bit of that episode with Vincenzo Latronico.
I've been giving a lot of thought to the difference between expat and immigrant, because of course there are some obvious difference in terms of class and in terms of privilege between the two, and often it's a racialized distinction as well. Like in Berlin, this was very clear. That when, there was the line at the immigration office to get your visa renewed, there were the American expat digital nomads and there were the Syrian refugees, and the two people had a very different status, even though technically in front of the law they were the same. But I think there is something more to that distinction, which is that you become an expat by buying an airline ticket and renting an Airbnb. This is enough to make you an expat. And so it's also enough, it's also very easy to leave, just as it is easy to come. Whereas in order to immigrate, you need to work extremely hard on shooting roots again in the place where you are. And the work of immigration is very, very hard. It's very, very painful. And you're every day aware of how hard it is. Whereas if you look at the videos of the people moving as expats, what they describe is very easy. But I think that the difference is that at the end of a process of emigration, like my grandmother was Russian and she emigrated and her family emigrated to Italy. So I know how hard it can be, but then you belong. You have roots, you have a community. Whereas as an expat, you never really fully have that. You have other expats, but this also is not really a community because they come and go. Somebody gets a job in their home country, or their kids want to go to the national school, and puff, from one week to the next, they're gone. And I think that this is the root of a kind of loneliness that I felt as an expat, and that I feel many expats I know or whose lives I have read also felt. And this is, I think, the loneliness, the lack that is as a background music of Perfection, of the book.
Okay, that was Vincenzo Latronico talking with me in episode 997 about his novel Perfection, available now from New York Review Books. This brings us to number 9, the 9th most listened to episode of the Otherppl show in 2025 was my conversation with Melissa Febos in episode 994. We were talking about her memoir, The Dry Season, a memoir of pleasure in a year without sex. It is available from Alfred A. Knopf. Melissa Febos is the national best-selling author of 5 books, including Abandon Me and Girlhood, which won the National Book Critics Circle Award in Criticism. She lives in Iowa City and teaches at the University of Iowa, and she is a longtime friend of this show. We've had many conversations over the years. In fact, I think I've spoken with Melissa Febos about every single one of her books, if I'm not mistaken. And it's always a joy to talk with her. So here is a bit from my conversation with Melissa Febos in episode 994.
Oh, for sure. And I teach it. I teach the forum too. So I talk about it all the time, and I'm constantly confronting and interacting and thinking in a diagnostic way about people's early drafts of memoir and essay and, things with autobiographical elements to it. And I think, often, I think that fault gets unfairly ascribed to the genre, like, oh, it's just like oversharing or vomiting. And really the issue, I think, with work like that is that it was given to you too soon, right? Everybody's early drafts are shit, Like I'm constantly saying to my students, it's writing a book the book you're writing is bad until near the end. Like it's bad for most of the time you are writing it. It's bad for years. And so when we talk about how difficult it is to write a book, we can talk about skill or technique or certain kinds of stamina. But I really think in some ways that's the hardest part, is that you have to have enough faith in the project to continue working on it despite it being of poor quality for like 5 or 6 years sometimes. And that requires an enormous amount of faith and fortitude and support, right? And so like my early drafts are, they're messy in their own way, but a lot of them are sort of a cascade of thoughts and feelings and impressions and ideas and the misguided story I've been telling myself in order to sort of keep my ego intact. And none of that is what should govern the draft that makes it into a reader's hands. By the time it gets into a reader's hands, it should have made it far, far beyond that phase until I truly have come to a new understanding and I have integrated it with all of my aesthetic practices. And it bears like very little resemblance to that initial sort of cascade of thought and feeling. And so, yeah, I think sometimes when people think that they're not interested in memoir or autobiographical writing, they're really thinking of sort of early stages or notes or, just like kind of at a draft stage. Like a finished memoir should be as articulated and controlled and intentional as, a finished novel.
All right, that was Melissa Febos talking with me about her memoir, The Dry Season. Available now from Knopf. The Dry Season is about how she went a year without sex and what that was like. So check it out. And we are now at number 8, the 8th most listened to episode of the Otherppl show in 2025 was episode 984. My conversation with Michael Clune. We were talking about his debut novel, Pan, which is available from Penguin Press. Michael Clune is the critically acclaimed author of the memoirs Game Life and another one called Whiteout, The Secret Life of Heroin. He is a professor at the Salmon P. Chase Center for Civics, Culture, and Society at Ohio State University. And this was his first time on the show. We had an excellent talk about his book, which is superb. So here we go with an excerpt from episode 984, my conversation with Michael Clune.
And thanks for talking about the spiritual aspect of the novel, which it is what I was really trying to get at, were these kinds of larger spiritual questions, but in a narrative. And that, and what I really wanted to do was create a kind of natural route from human experience to something like supernatural or spiritual experience. And I tried to show Nick's kind of evolution there with his meditation and his experience of panic. But for me, I'd say a few things. Like spiritually, I started practicing Zen meditation pretty seriously after I got clean from heroin, which is 23 years ago, and I've continued that practice, and Zen and Buddhism in general has always seemed to me like a very compelling and natural orientation to the world, which isn't to say that I feel like it's exclusive of other religious orientations. For example, the Zen teachers I had when I got out of jail and treatment, all that stuff back in the early 2000s, they were these two Catholic nuns, and they were still Catholic nuns, but they were also Zen teachers who'd been, confirmed in that Zen tradition by other teachers and so forth. And they were just the most compassionate and like open people I'd ever met. And they also were tripped out. You know what I mean? They also had a sense of the uncanny, the absurd, and the strange. Like that didn't really bother them. You'd think, I remember going in there and I was like in my mid-20s, and they were, they've passed since. They were older. They were in their 70s and 80s. And I was always very careful of what I said around them. You know what I mean? But they would just say the most surprising and shocking things all the time and to be really mellow about it. But the actual experience of meditating, and I think people have also described this in their psychedelic experiences. There's really, and it really is difficult to describe, but there's a sense that the Buddhists call it no self or non-self, but you could also call it all self, right? There's an experience in meditation when one feels some kind of unity or some kind of resonance with this spiritual reality that is everywhere and sort of always, that is super profound. With writing, and this is the challenge I was really set myself in writing this book, is the kinds of experiences that Nick has, both of panic and then in the way that panic and intense conscious states can kind of open up into these sort of spiritual and suddenly become spiritual experiences. Those are super hard to talk about and super hard to write about. And so trying to come up with a language and metaphors and images that could evoke that in the reader, or hopefully evoke something like that in the reader, was something I really tried to do, because just describing the way that I did about my own meditation experiences, it's general. I'm using sort of like, boring kinds of well-worn terms and words, and it doesn't really do much. At least when I hear that kind of talk, it doesn't do much for me. And so trying to really go deeply into experience with this language, and I'll say this also, one thing that Zen has always been really comfortable with as a spiritual tradition is humor and laughter, right? And like Zen masters are always making the craziest jokes and the most absurd jokes, and the koans are hilarious and read like bizarre stone jokes, but they were written in like 1100, you know what I mean, by Japanese monks. That with humor, and I feel like laughter, like one thing I can, or I feel like I can evoke in a reader is laughter, like create situations that are so bizarre and absurd that someone will just laugh. And I feel like laughter, it also has this kind of spiritual quality to it. This sense that when we laugh, often what we're responding to is something that is seen familiar and dull and normal to us. And all of a sudden we're getting an angle on it where it appears new, alien, strange, uncanny, bizarre. And we respond to that with laughter, which is a kind of a physical, dislocation and a kind of self-abandonment in a weird way. Like we bare our teeth and open our mouths and make these crazy sounds. And so, part of what I was influenced in all my writing, and in this book in particular, was that Buddhist sense that while dark humor and comedy is not opposed to spiritual insight, but is actually one vehicle for transmitting it.
All right, that was Michael Clune in episode 984 talking with me about his debut novel, Pan, out there now from Penguin Press. It was a great talk. We are now at, number 7. The 7th most listened to episode of the year was my conversation with Amanda Yates Garcia, Also known as the Oracle of Los Angeles, Amanda is a writer, a socially engaged artist, and a public witch. She is also a doctoral student in the Department of World Arts, Cultures, and Dance at UCLA. She wrote a memoir, an excellent memoir called Initiated, and it was published, a few years ago. She is the host of the Between the Worlds podcast, and she is the founder of Mystery Cult, which is her Substack. It's a huge community online, more than 20,000 people. And I had her on the show because I had been reading her online and resonating with it, and I just had a hunch that we would have a good talk. It wasn't like a traditional interview in the sense that she had a book that was out at the moment, and I was talking with her about it in some sort of publicity cycle. I just reached out to her, and I was like, hey, can we talk? And she was gracious and said yes, and we talked, and it was excellent. So here is a little bit of that conversation with Amanda Yates Garcia, aka the Oracle of Los Angeles.
The only way out of this polycrisis is for all of us to wake up to solidarity and recognize that we are in this together and to care for one another. Care is the only way forward. And it has to be care for the most vulnerable among us. And this is something that, Black women, for instance, have been telling us for hundreds of years, shouting it off the roof. And for whatever reason, racism and many other reasons, we haven't listened. Also, Indigenous people who were able to, over hundreds of years, figure out how to live together and to live in solidarity with the world around them so that it could keep nourishing them. They've learned these ways, which is we're only as strong as the most vulnerable being among us, which is completely antithetical to the way that empire thinks or operates. For empire, we're only as strong as the one person on top who is able to dominate everyone else. And it gets us to participate in our own oppression and to think it's right and to think it's good. So the biggest problem right now is the colonization of our minds, where we are convinced that if we just do it like Daddy says, that everything's going to be okay. And it's not going to be okay until we recognize that, solidarity is the only way forward. And the good news is solidarity feels so good. It's like the images of the rapture from a medieval period. It's like a light that comes into your life that you would never be willing to trade once you experience it for yourself.
All right, that was Amanda Yates Garcia, also known as the Oracle of Los Angeles, talking with me on the program earlier this year. A wonderful conversation. Once again, Amanda's memoir is called Initiated. Her podcast is called Between the Worlds, and her Substack community is called Mystery Cult. So go check all of that stuff out and experience the magic of Amanda Yates Garcia. So we are now to number 6, the 6th most listened to episode of the Otherppl show for the year 2025. And it was my conversation with Lydia Yuknovich in episode 956. Lydia was celebrating the publication of a memoir called Reading the Waves, which is available now from Riverhead Books. She is the nationally best-selling author of several novels, including Thrust, The Book of Joan, The Small Backs of Children, and Dora, A Head Case. She is also the author of another memoir called The Chronology of Water, which has been adapted into a feature film by none other than Kristen Stewart. So, Lydia's been on the show many times over the years. It's always a delight talking with her. It's always meaningful. And here is a little bit of my conversation with Lydia in episode 956.
Ursula Le Guin, the writer, I knew her, and I was very inspired by her work and by that relationship. And she wrote more than one thing about how important it is, this philosophy of carrying and passing and sharing and taking turns, as opposed to grand male heroic gestures of saving someone or war or, getting the meat or hunting. Like she actually has an essay about that. It's called The Carrier Bag Theory of Fiction. And it's great. Everyone should read it. But, I've really embraced that notion that while we're here, somebody's handing us things and we've got to carry it when it's our turn. And then we got to pass it to the person next to it, whether it's art or love or water or shit or food. Like, that process is more important to me than any, like single product that might come out of me.
All right, everybody. That's it. That was Lydia Yuknavitch talking with me about her memoir, Reading the Waves, available from Riverhead Books in the 6th most listened to episode of the year. And that's it for this episode. We're going to count down the top 5 on Christmas Day on Thursday. What do you think of that? Don't forget to subscribe to this show wherever you listen. Hit the subscribe button. You can follow me on Blue Sky and Instagram. You can get an Otherppl t-shirt or join the book club over at otherppl.com. And you can get a DeepDive course for 30% off up until midnight Pacific time on Christmas Day. Use the code HOLIDAYS2025. If you want to send a gift, just select Send as a Gift at checkout and schedule delivery to a person's inbox anytime. All right, it's been a year. We're working our way through it. Thanks for listening. Happy holidays. And I'll talk to you again in a couple of days. Stay tuned.